Hey guys, Youngblood with you for the 58th episode of the Unbox, and my voice is almost back together, so we're going to go ahead and do a video and push the envelope a little bit. We're going to start off with a question from Jay Orr saying, "Hey STLYoungblood, love what you got going here. A little theory and crafty for you. What are your thoughts on how CIG would implement that promised private server of the game right now, given where the game is now? Would it even be possible given the size of the universe in your opinion?" I would say technically, yeah, anything's possible, and what we have today is actually really, really big. Now, it's nowhere near what it's going to end up being. The problem is that for CIG to do that, they have to release kind of their base design, and then people go in and mod the assets or add in other things. So if they're going to be going through and changing the universe frequently, there's going to be pretty big differences. So if they were to say, we're going to cut the cord today, this is what people have to play with and what they can mod with, that would be fine, but it wouldn't be getting the same level of updates, because then all of a sudden, if they've made changes to the universe and then they push that out to people that are running private servers, then those people are going to have to make changes to those servers to be able to have a compatible game. So I think it would probably be a situation where the community, the modding community and CIG would kind of be butting heads constantly, and it's just not worth it at this point for CIG to probably go down that road. So I think based on the size of the universe, you could absolutely do things. Because things are really far apart, and given the travel times that it takes in game right now, I think you're going to have situations where it would be fine, but I don't think it's a smart move for CIG to go down that road yet. Lazarus 2 says, out of curiosity, do you think they'll have ships with multiple decks, like Voyager from Star Trek? I don't really follow the game, just one of those. Do you think they will? Yeah, I mean, we have ships with multiple decks today. You know, the Starfarer has 4 decks, I believe. The Caterpillar has 2 or 3. When we start getting up to ships like the Idris and the Bengal and the Javelin, they're going to have many, many decks on them. So, yeah, there's going to be multiple deck ships. Most of the ships in the game are probably going to be smaller than what you're seeing from Star Trek, but that doesn't mean that there's not going to be big ships with decks, and even small ships that have decks that you can access. So, yeah, there are multiple deck ships. Count Zero says, "Hi STL, great episode as always. Really like your content. Thank you. Has it ever been mentioned if we could name our ships?" Yes, we'll get that ability at some point. They haven't really described how it's going to be displayed, though. It may be one of those things where you can see it, but nobody else can. Or if you scan a ship's registry, it's listed, but it's not actually on the outside. I think it has to do with how that is applied to the ship and whether that's something they can actually have in game. For people to see without it being kind of a resource situation. And then your second question was, how does the reputation system work for smugglers? Obviously, you're a criminal, but you don't want to be flagged as a criminal. Do you have any idea how that's going to work? If you're caught doing something illegal, it's probably going to ping your reputation. So if you're smuggling heroin, space heroin, and you're caught with that, then you're probably going to get a bounty on you. You're probably going to have to pay off some fines, and your reputation's probably going to be, decreased. The best smugglers in the game are going to be the ones that aren't listed as smugglers, because if you're a good citizen, even though you're doing bad deeds, but in the eyes of the law you're good, you're going to have an easier time getting the nefarious stuff to the location. But if you roll into a space dock and you're a really wanted person, or you're shown to be someone who's smuggled in the past, people are probably going to look at you with a little bit more skeptical eye. So just because you're smuggling doesn't make you a wanted man. If you're caught smuggling, though, that makes you a wanted man. So you want to be good at your craft. You want to hide stuff in shielded containers. You want to probably transport things in open sight. So for example, in Aurora smuggling, heroin's probably going to be less likely than a Cutlass smuggling heroin or something like that. So it doesn't matter if you want to be flagged as a criminal or not. It just determines what's going to determine your reputation is if you're caught doing your deeds. Miley Zoll says, started playing during the last free flight period. For most of the ships, I couldn't locate the shield component in my hangar. Was this just a bug? Is the hangar hub will be able to access components in the future or no? So the item port system 2.0 is something that there's kind of ongoing. Today you have the ability to swap out, hard points and missiles and a couple different components, and some of them have come and gone. We're going to see more of them added in, and you're going to see a couple different places where you can probably do this. You can probably stop off at like a Cryastro and have them do it for you. You can do it yourself in the hangar. You could probably even use like a holotable type of thing to actually have it just done automatically. But your hangar's going to be kind of your home base, and if you're doing like repairs or changes to your ship, that's where you're going to be doing it at. Voodoo Mar says, "Hey Youngblood, love the show. My question is, what stage do you say I have too many ships? I ask because as of right now, I have a Carrack, Caterpillar, Starfarer, Kore, Avenger, Terrapin, which I always thought was a lot, but asking around some of the other org mates turns out to be a low number as of right now. I think it's a lot. It's a hard question to answer because it depends on who you are, depends on your financial situation, depends on how much you're going to be able to play. I would say what it comes down to is, are you going to be able to fly all of those ships? You're not going to be able to fly them all at once, but do you have plans to use them all? So if you had a 315P and a Reliant Sen and a Freelancer Dur and a Constellation Aquila and a Carrack, I'd be like, we are very, very exploration heavy, and the chances of you using all of those at any given time is probably going to be pretty low. In your situation, Carrack is exploration, Caterpillar's kind of versatile, Starfarer is fuel, Corey kind of overrides with the Avenger. Terrapin does exploration, so I don't necessarily think you need the Terrapin when you have the Carrack, unless you're not planning on using a lot of NPCs, then the Terrapin's probably better. So, it really just depends. If you see yourself using all of those ships, then I think, you're probably fine. But if you look at that and say, well, I was planning on using my Starfarer for cargo too, well, then you've got the Starfarer and the Caterpillar that kind of override themselves a little bit. So you have some redundancies there, but it's not the most, overarching theme. You've got some versatility in your fleet there. So, again, it just comes down to whether you think you can use them or not. I would just diversify to do as many things that interest you as possible. I wouldn't get a reclaimer, for example, if you don't have any interest in doing salvage work. I would just focus your crew or your ships on what you think you're actually going to be able to use. And then I would also have a balance of single-seater ships, medium ships and large ships. I wouldn't stack them. So you don't want to have a ton of big ships and always be reliant on crew. Having some smaller ships as runabouts or things that you can do errands that have lower operational costs, I think is helpful too. So you've got a decent variety there. So I wouldn't say you're kind of over, you're too stacked in one direction. Eli Plattner says, hey, Youngblood, I have actually missed 20 episodes of the inbox, so I'm not sure if anybody has asked this yet. Could you perhaps list the best uses and features of the Herald? Thanks, keep it up. So the Herald, in its core, is really an information runner. So, it's meant to be able to collect data that's kind of floating around in the verse. It's meant to be able to be like an electronic warfare ship. So basically, if you need to take information securely from point A to point B, the Herald is perfect. You can store it on the servers. It's very fast in a straight line. It should have some tricks up its sleeve as far as the defensive abilities with electronic warfare. I think it could be an interesting support ship in a fleet. It's got a lot of missiles on board that could be turned into data spike missiles. So it could kind of facilitate in piracy. It could be helpful for boarding actions. If you're interested in just stealing information, you've got the ability to collect it using the servers or the satellite dishes that are on board. I think you can probably use it to broadcast data as well, almost being like a news van in a way. There's a lot of things that you can do with the Herald that all kind of focus around electronic warfare and, some aspects of, information piracy. But at its core, it's really mostly about taking information from point A to point B. I think it could also be used outside the box. As kind of like a smuggling ship. It'd be hard to catch. I think it could be good for VIP transport, not necessarily in a luxury way, but in I need to get somebody to a location. I think the ship is going to be very hard for anybody to catch up to. So, if somebody's wanted and you want to get them to a different location, that would be helpful. There's a lot of different ways you can kind of make the Herald work, but it's mostly going to be surrounding information. And the last two questions are patron questions, starting out with Sketchy. It says, when do you think CCU or other website features will be turned off, i.e. before the launch of PU, or maybe never? They're definitely going to be turned off at some point, and they're going to give us, a heads up. At least that's what they've told us. I think what we keep hearing, or at least what I've heard a lot, is a lot of this is going to be killed before beta. So as we're going through alpha, you're going to be able to do your CCUs. Once you get closer to beta, we're probably going to start seeing timelines on when those are going to be taken away. I think we're mostly talking about ship features. So, the ability to buy things with currency, real life currency, that's probably going to be turned off around beta. I think electronic access, being able to rent things for Arena Commander, I don't think that's ever going to go away. But as far as I'm giving you real money and you're giving me virtual spaceship items, I think that goes away probably around beta, but we'll have to see what their kind of plans are, because that's been not necessarily a question they've dodged for a while. I think they just haven't really roadmapped how that's going to look. And frankly, we look to be a long ways off from beta. So I think we're going to have a while to kind of get that all worked through. And the last question today is from Sarah. Would any TV shows made from gameplay footage be subject to royalties paid to CIG? I have no idea. It's hard to say because, I mean, YouTube isn't that far from a TV situation, and I don't have to pay royalties to CIG. But I think some of that also comes in the form that CIG knows that us making videos in turn is good for the advertising of the game and kind of builds a stronger community. TV, for some reason, feels slightly different. So I don't know. I mean, any of you guys that are more familiar with like copyright law and, you know, anything along those lines, I'm sure questions like this have been brought up with things like Halo and Red versus Blue and, you know, various aspects like that. I don't think that there would be royalties that would need to go back to CIG, you know, unless you were actually licensing something from them. But my guess would be, actually, hell, I don't even have a guess. Somebody else is going to have to weigh in there because I don't know enough about the laws there to say anything knowledgeable. And then somebody's going to run out and make a TV show and then owe CIG a bunch of money, and I don't want to be responsible for that. So anybody that's a copyright lawyer out there, feel free to chime in and answer Sarah's question. So that's it for this episode. I appreciate you guys watching. Thanks for dealing with the voice. We're almost back to normal. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and take care.